So, Wicked is the theatrical adaptation of the popular musical, and it's directed by John M. Chu, who does have some experience with musicals. Like he did a great job with In the Heights, and he managed to have this great direction of just presenting these elaborate and stylish visuals and dance numbers that went along with the music, but also kept the theme rather firm throughout. And that's very much the case with this film, Wicked. And it would be so easy, for being based on like such a popular and revered musical that it would have just such like a lavish and exuberance to it that it would be easy for like the themes to get lost within the glamour of it all. And to be fair, yeah, there's a lot of glamour to this. There's some great costumes. There's a lot of eye-popping visuals, and there's catchy lyrics. It's got all of that, and it feels like all that could just like cake over everything that would want to be told about this tale of discrimination and trying to fit in, and all these interesting aspects to explore of the world of Oz. But that's the thing about Chu's direction. He's firm enough where he has a grasp on the material, so that he's as thematically resonant with this work as it is decadently assembled. So that there's this very organic feel to it, where it can have these incredible numbers and still have something to say, but also still have fun with the material, where something like a mere hair flip can be funny. So yeah, this is a tale about discrimination and political strife, and it feels especially topical now more than ever, and it isn't dulled down or softened a bit within like this fantastical this setting. So although the film does kind of challenge that that binary that Glinda the Good Witch would pose, like, oh, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Like, so is this a good musical or a bad? I mean, it's challenging that binary of good and bad. But in case you're wondering, yeah, Too Long Didn't Read. Yes, it is a good musical. So. And the thing that I love about this, because I'll say this right up front. I have not seen the musical. I have not read the book. But I will say, for a film that has the guts to start off with recollecting like the demise of the Wicked Witch of the West, it does a good job kind of like building up and making you care about that character, for letting you know right ahead of time, yes, this is going to take a dark end. So it kind of got like an uphill battle, but I think that puts like the stakes high on the film for making you care about this stuff, as kind of like as a prequel of sorts, depending on how you look at it. And I think what goes a long way with establishing that is that there's enough charisma and energy to keep you engaged with these characters despite their inevitability. So, of course, the two top talents here, you have Ariana Grande is well established as the perky and polished Glinda Upland, who's aiming to prove herself as the top talent at the magical university known as Shiz. So, challenging her status is the unexpected green student of Elphaba, played by Cynthia Erivo. And she's like the polar opposite of Glinda. Glinda's, all perky and peppy and expects everything to go her way, whereas, Elphaba is used to things not going her way. So, of course, when the lead magical lady there, Madame Morrible, played by Michelle Yeoh, takes an interest in Elphaba's powers because she has these amazing magical abilities that can be taken advantage of if only she can harness her emotions. There's a little bit of a rivalry between them, especially when they get housed together as this kind of odd couple of sorts. So, with this pink socialite and this green outcast sharing a dorm room, they clash just as much as their academics, as they clash as much over their academics as they do for the love of this newcomer of Prince Fiero, played by Jonathan Bailey, who more or less kind of has the presence of more of like as a goal than a person. It never quite felt like he had as much agency. It more or less kind of felt like he was playing up to what these two women wanted. So like Glinda, of course, recognizes him for just being handsome and having status, while Elphaba takes interest in him because he has some interest in the politics of this world. So there's a little bit of kind of a love triangle there, but I don't feel like it pays off as it. It's more interesting just to see what happens between Elphaba and Glinda, more than whether or not they'll end up with the guy, which is fair, but it does kind of make him more or less just like fodder for challenging their relationship. So, thankfully, the film is not just about that, because all is not well in the land of Oz. They're discriminating against animals, and there's corruption going on. But the film does place enough of a visual splendor in its many musical numbers to make it a place worth caring about. So that when the shit hits the fan, you start caring about it more. Much like how you know that the witch is going to die, so you have to really care for her, for this character who's eventually going to become evil. And just like the way that the film is set up, it makes it a lot of fun to watch. Like, you would not think that, like, a library would be, like, the greatest place to have, a musical number. But within this, within Shiz and this whole magical world, it can be a lot of fun where they have, like, these kind of, like, rotating column, like, these almost kind of like hamster wheels, where they store these books, which is kind of clever. And I love how, like, they have these turning ladders that go between like the different parts of the wheel there, and of course that makes for a great sequence where characters are sliding up and down and going out through it. Kind of like it kind of reminded me of like it's like if 2001: A Space Odyssey had musical numbers in it. So yeah, just very elaborate sequence. I love the way it's staged. I love the energy that comes through it. And Glinda's song about giving Elphaba a makeover, I love too, because you would think that'd be like a very simple song where she's just dashing around the room, but the way that everything is kind of very mechanical and just pops out right on cue, it was a lot of fun to watch. Like there is an undeniable energy where even though you're kind of like sneering a little bit at Glenda for being so jealous, you do kind of like love the fact that she does want to help Elphaba, and there's an undeniable perkiness and energy that is just that I just adored. I couldn't get enough of her. So when the two leads arrive in Emerald City, I think that's like another big part of the film that you have to sell, like, because they keep talking up the Emerald City where the great and powerful Oz is going to make all the dreams come true. So once you get there, that feels like the most crucial moment, where it does have to be visually stunning and exciting, and there's got to be lots of amazing sights and dancing, and you got to feel the energy there, and it's there. It's there. I mean, John doesn't really disappoint in this aspect at all, particularly for the little cameos that they put in there as well. And I think just, I mean, I could say this, I could go over all the songs here. I won't, but just every piece of music here that they try to play up, I think just it has the perfect amount of theatrics where it did keep me more engaged and more exciting to see where this where the story was going to go next, if not for, learning more about the plight of Oz and, Elphaba kind of coming more into her own as a witch, then just to see what would happen within, like, the next musical number. Because there were, when I was at the screening, there were times where, after, like, a high note was reached within a lot of these musical numbers, there was applause. like the film wasn't even over yet. It's just like, it was just one song ending, and there's already, like, applause going on in the theater. And I've talked to a few other critics as well, and they've said that, yeah, it's happened at their screening as well. So yeah, I mean, the musical numbers are that good. And I think perhaps it's because, like, this film is like, for those who don't know yet, this is part one of a 2-part film. I think the film, for being 2.5 hours, it does take its time well enough to get you engaged with these characters so that you care about them, but also it doesn't, like, linger so much on explaining, like, a lot of, like, the politics and the ins and outs of Oz, because honestly it shouldn't have to. If you're interested enough in this world, like, you should be able to keep up with it as it keeps going, and just kind of accept some of, like, the magical decor and the fact that there's talking animals and just, like, these amazing sights in the Emerald City, and the fact that it keeps going fast enough, I think was a really good choice on John's part. But also just making sure that, like, the characters who are ingrained in this world were actually still interested in magic. Because that was one of my biggest criticisms of a more high fantasy, like the Golden Compass, was that it was a fantasy in this world where people were just, they treated the presence of talking animals not even so much as, like, a mundanity, but as, like, an annoyance. And it's just like, well, if these characters don't care about this world, why should I? And I think just that makes it easy to love Elphaba, because she has a lot more faith in herself and, and her dreams and that she can accomplish in this world. And the more that you see her magic come out in the film, the more you start, the more you start rooting for her. which I think really worked for establishing that thematic core, which does not get corrupted by all the glitz and glamour that comes about with it. That said, the film, I don't think. I do think it has like some flaws. For as much as I love the lavish setup here and the strong thematic core, there are some elements that get left by the wayside. In particular, I think it was a little bit. I think casting Jeff Goldblum as the Wizard of Oz was not the greatest choice, just because when he shows up on screen, it's just Jeff Goldblum being Jeff Goldblum. So if you're expecting him to like go a little bit more out of his element as a villain, he really doesn't. Even within like the musical numbers that he's given here, like his presence almost kind of like grinds the film to a little bit of a halt. And I think it's only just because Ariana Grande and Cynthia Erivo, they are so good in their numbers that when you get to someone like Goldblum, which he doesn't have much of a number, but it's just like, oh, this is not on the same. This is not. It's not clap. It's not clap in the theater worthy. I mean, like that's a really high bar, but it just wasn't working. Not to mention like a few other characters. Like was it Nessa and Bach kind of have like a romance that it's just kind of like forced upon them, where it's just like it's one born kind of like from pity, and it would have been interesting to focus on them a little bit more, but much like Fiyero, they're kind of like pushed off to the side just enough where it feels like there's only enough time to just cover like the bullet points with these characters before we get back to to Glinda and Alphaba to develop more of their relationship. And I would fault the film heavier for that if it weren't for the fact that their dynamic really works. And I think just keeping up the energy and the pace of this film allows you to get more lost within the fantasy, I said, while not getting lost within like the greater message that it's trying to tell here. So it's a very delicate balancing act, and it feels like, John was kind of trimming and pruning where he needed to here to just play up to the strengths here. And for the most part, I think it works. I think, there's enough of a story here to get you interested in Oz, but it's not played up as being too intricate or too elaborate that you get tired of it. The musical numbers arrive in, like a perfect manner where like they progress the story and the character dynamics, while not feeling like too much of a distraction, even though they are fun to get lost in. I love the way that they're staged. I love the costuming, just the dancing and the singing. And let's face it, the people who are going to be coming to this film, that's what's going to matter most. It's going to, just the character chemistry and just like the visuals and the energy and the music. That is what's going to count most with a film like Wicked. And on that level, I think John really delivers with a film like this. I don't think it's as great as In the Heights, only because I think that had a firmer grasp on establishing its world, and it didn't feel like it was leaving so many characters behind. Like it felt like they were given enough breathing room here, and it feels like the side characters in Wicked are kind of scrambling, to make their presence known in this film, where it's mostly just Ariana Grande and Cynthia just taking over the screen, which it's a little bit conflicted because that's what you came for and that's what needs to work in this film, and it does, but what can I say? Like it works well enough for what they're trying to do with this material here, where I can actually dig this version of the Wizard of Oz. I mean, it's a far cry from the dismal fantasy of something like Return to Oz or any other weird Wizard of Oz interpretation. So yeah, as a theatrical musical, Wicked pretty much gets the job done. I just love the visuals and getting engaged in the story more than enough to that I didn't mind the side characters being pushed aside or downgraded a little bit, just because the strengths of this film, the main things that a lot of people are going to be coming to for this movie, they really do work well. So yeah, Wicked is just a fantastic musical to watch, warts and all.